One of the problems with healing culture is that it can make very sincere people spend years looking for what is wrong with them. And the strange part is the more they look, the more they find. Not because they are broken, but because the mind is very good at finding evidence for the identity it is practicing. So if the question underneath the work is what is still wrong with me, the mind knows exactly what to do. It starts searching for proof. And if you look around, there's a whole world built around that question now. Books, podcasts, retreats, workshops, courses, all pointing people back toward the next thing to find, the next wound to understand, the next layer to process. And some of that can be helpful. I'm not dismissing it. But if we are not careful, a sincere person can spend years in that world and still be practicing the same identity. Something is wrong with me. And once that identity is active, the mind will keep finding proof. It will find it in the way you pull back when someone gets close. It will find it in the way your body tightens before a conversation that, if you really look at it, is not actually dangerous. It will find it in the sadness that shows up on a perfectly ordinary afternoon. You're driving home or making coffee or sitting there after work with your phone in your hand, not even really looking at it. And there's just this heaviness. Nothing big happened, nothing obvious, but almost immediately the mind starts building a story. Why am I still like this? What haven't I healed yet? What does this mean about me? And I want to slow that moment down because this is where a lot of people get caught. Not because they are unwilling to grow, not because they are avoiding responsibility. A lot of the people I see get caught here are very responsible. They've done the therapy. They've read the books. They've listened to the podcasts. They've gone back and looked at the childhood pattern, the relationship pattern, the family system, the attachment wound, all of it. And there can be real value in that. There's pain that deserves care. There are old experiences that shape the body. There are things that happened in the past that influence how we respond in the present. But there's a difference between caring for pain and building your identity around damage. That difference matters because a person can start out trying to understand themselves, and that is a good instinct. But over time, if they are not careful, the whole process can become organized around one quiet assumption. Something is wrong with me. That assumption may not be obvious. It may not be said out loud. It may sound much more sophisticated than that. It may sound like, I'm just doing my healing work, or I need to find the deeper wound, or there must be something unresolved that I haven't gotten to yet. And maybe sometimes that is true. Maybe there's something there to see. But I want you to notice what happens when that becomes the main way you relate to yourself. Every reaction becomes evidence. You get anxious before a hard conversation, and the mind says, see, I'm not healed yet. Someone actually loves you well, and instead of relaxing, your body starts scanning for what might go wrong. And the mind says, see, I have attachment wounds. You feel sad on a day where nothing bad happened, and the mind says, see, there must be something deeper wrong with me. And after a while, the mind is not just observing, it is training. It is practicing a way of seeing yourself. And whatever we practice, we tend to get better at. If I practice looking for what is wrong, I get better at finding what is wrong. If I practice seeing every reaction as evidence of damage, that identity gets stronger. If I practice relating to myself as wounded, broken, not ready, not healed enough, then even my growth work can start reinforcing the very identity I'm trying to move beyond. That is the loop I want to interrupt. The more I assume there is something wrong with me, the more my attention starts organizing around that idea. The more my attention organizes around that idea, the more evidence I find. And the more evidence I find, the more real the identity feels. Not because it is ultimately true, but because I have rehearsed it. I have rehearsed it in the way I think, in the way I explain my reactions, in the way I talk to myself, in the way I search through my past trying to locate the exact moment where I became this way. And again, I want to be clear, the past matters. Therapy can matter. The word healing is not wrong. There are times when people need support, care, repair, grief, and real attention to what happened. But I do not organize my work around the idea that you're broken. I do not want to keep pointing someone back toward the question, what is damaged in me? Because at some point, that question stops creating freedom. It starts creating a loop. And the loop can be hard to see because it looks like growth. You're being introspective. You're being honest. You're taking responsibility. You're trying to understand. But if the question underneath all of it is, what is wrong with me? Then the mind will keep producing answers that fit the question. That is why I tend to use the language of training, because training starts from a different place. Training does not begin with what is broken in me. It begins with what pattern is active right now. And that question changes the whole relationship. Let's say closeness feels threatening. The healing frame might immediately ask, what wound is this? And maybe that is not a useless question. Sometimes it shows you something, but the training frame asks something a little more immediate. What is my body doing right now? Where did my attention go? What response is getting rehearsed? Can I stay present for one more breath instead of pulling away? That is a more practical place to begin. Or let's say your body braces before a conversation. You know the conversation needs to happen. You know the other person has not done anything wrong, but your shoulders tighten, your chest gets guarded, your mind starts preparing for impact. The healing frame may send you into, why am I like this? The training frame says, okay, this is the pattern, not as a judgment, just as a recognition. The body has learned to protect. The mind has learned to anticipate threat. The nervous system has learned in certain moments to prepare for pain before pain is even present. That does not mean you're broken. It means your system learned a response. And learned responses can be trained differently. This is the part I think people miss. They think if they understand the pattern deeply enough, it will automatically change. Sometimes it does, but often it does not. You can understand your childhood pattern and still feel your body pull back when someone gets close. You can understand your fear of rejection and still reread a text 3 times, trying to figure out if the tone changed. You can understand why conflict feels unsafe and still shut down the moment someone asks, can we talk? That does not mean the understanding was useless. It just means insight and training are not the same thing. Insight helps you see the pattern. Training changes your capacity inside the pattern. And capacity matters. Because the moment closeness feels threatening is not theoretical. It is not happening in a journal. It is not happening while you're listening to a podcast. It is happening in your body in real time. Someone is looking at you. Someone is asking a question. Someone is loving you in a way that feels unfamiliar. Someone is disappointed. Someone is quiet. Someone has not texted back yet. And your system starts doing what it has practiced. Pull away, defend, scan, over-explain, shut down, reach for control, make meaning, look for what is wrong. That is where training matters, not as a concept, as a practice. Can I notice the body bracing and stay with the breath for a moment? Can I feel the impulse to pull away and not immediately obey it? Can I notice the mind searching for proof that I'm damaged and gently interrupt the search? Can I stop making every reaction mean something about my worth, my readiness, or my future? That is not a small thing, because for many people, the reaction itself is not the only thing creating suffering. It is the meaning they attach to the reaction. The anxiety comes up, and the mind says, I'm not healed. The anxiety comes up, and the mind says, I'm not healed. The sadness comes up, and the mind says, I'm still broken. The fear comes up, and the mind says, I can't trust myself. Now there are two layers. There's the original emotion, and then there's the identity built on top of it. That second layer is often what makes the whole thing feel so heavy. Because now you're not just feeling fear, you're feeling fear and then relating to yourself as someone who is defective because fear is there. You're not just noticing that closeness feels uncomfortable. You're making that discomfort proof that there's still something wrong with you. And once that happens, the work gets exhausting because every emotion becomes another assignment. Every reaction becomes another wound to investigate. Every uncomfortable moment becomes another reason to go searching. And I do not think that is always the most useful place to stand. There's another place to stand, a steadier one. You can acknowledge the pain without building an identity around it. You can understand the past without living from the assumption that the past means you're damaged. You can care for what happened without making wounded the center of who you are. And you can train. You can train attention when it starts scanning for a rejection. You can train the body to soften when it wants to brace. You can train the mind to stop turning every emotional reaction into evidence against you. You can practice the response before you need it in the moment. This is why training is such an important word for me. In martial arts, you do not become capable by understanding the idea of balance. You train balance. You do not become clear under pressure by reading about calm. You practice staying steady while pressure is present. And inner work is not that different. You do not become emotionally steady just because you understand why you're reactive. You train steadiness. You do not become trusting just because you understand your fear. You practice a different relationship to fear. You do not become present in closeness just because you identified the wound. You train the body, the attention, and the emotional response to stay present when closeness shows up. That is where the work becomes real. And it does not have to be dramatic. Sometimes it is very small. You notice your body pulling back, you take one breath. You stay in the conversation for 3 more seconds. You notice the mind saying, see, something is wrong with me. And instead of following that thought all the way down, you pause. You ask, what pattern is active right now? Just that. Not how do I fix myself? Not what wound does this prove? Not why am I still like this? Just what pattern is active right now? That question feels different. There is responsibility in it. There's agency in it. And there's a lot less shame. It does not deny pain. It does not bypass the past. But it refuses to turn the person into the problem. And for me, that matters. Because the person is not the problem. The pattern is the thing to train. The attention is the thing to train. The emotional response is the thing to train. The relationship to discomfort is the thing to train. The meaning you attach to the reaction is the thing to train. And when you begin there, the work feels different. You are no longer endlessly searching for what is wrong. You're practicing what becomes possible. That is a very different orientation. And it is one of the reasons I do not use the word healing much. Not because I think it is always wrong, but because I do not want the work to keep pointing people back toward damage as the organizing principle. I want the work to point toward capacity, toward practice, toward a new response, toward the possibility that you are not broken, you are patterned, and patterns can be trained. So the next time you catch the mind asking, "What is wrong with me?" pause for a moment, feel your feet, let the body know you're here, and ask a different question. What pattern is active right now? And maybe if you can stay with it for one more breath, what can I train here? That is where I would begin.